your teeth actually makes a difference. That story is in the Times.
But it's great for television presenters. Great. It means you don't go on air with baked beans between your teeth. Never nice.
Baked beans between your teeth?
Well, bits of...
Whatever, I know what you mean.
You know. Don't know what you had this morning. Oliver Cornock, save us. He's the managing editor at Oxford Business Group and has clearly flossed as well this morning. Nice
morning,
smile.
Oliver.
Absolutely, if only I'd had time for baked beans.
Right, the Gulf news. Let's go back to that. One of its lead stories is Obama saying that Trump is unfit to be president. Hardly a surprising headline. He's not going to say he's going to make a great president, but I think what's... and we were discussing this before we came on air, I think what's interesting about this is he's actually calling on Republicans not to vote for him and to disown him.
Absolutely, and interesting that it's in the Gulf Times as well.
Right.
You know, the Islamic world is quite concerned about Trump. Of course, this is just echoing broader global concern about what's going on. And now for Obama to come out and say, enough's enough here. And there's been a couple of turns here. Obviously, Trump has been grabbing headlines with some of his statements, and people have said perhaps he'll moderate them were he to get in power. But this attack on one of these Gold Star families, this Muslim who died fighting for America, is perhaps a turning point. I was in the States recently. The esteem with which servicemen are held in the US is amazing. I was in an airport, and people are saying, thank you for your service to people in uniform. I wonder if this is, this is actually a real dagger through.
And it may very well be, but an interesting point is that you've got the Obama coming out and other Republicans and saying he's not fit and all that. But that's exactly those who support Trump. They Obama and the others can say what they want because they're part of the establishment, and that's what people who support Trump absolutely hate. They're fed up with them, right?
Absolutely.
So,
but he's also been, seen to sort of back this Russian annexation of the Crimea as well.
Yeah.
There's been some really...
But I've just got back from the States as well. I don't think that a lot of people I spoke to, and this isn't a scientific poll, but a lot of people I spoke to, they're supporting Trump just simply because he's anti-establishment.
Absolutely.
It's as simple as... So when you've got François Hollande, when you've got President Obama, when you've got other members of the establishment criticising Trump, that just ups up the...
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what he wants.
Yeah. Should we move on to The Guardian? Britain, it says here, Britain leaves child refugees alone, afraid and abandoned. Does the British government let these kids down?
Lord Dubs, this kindergarten, kinder transport peer, Labour peer in the House of Lords, pushed through this bill 3 months ago, turning round the government's position on trying to accept more of these unaccompanied children, refugees. Some 88,000, and basically this story, it's a very human story, is saying not much is happening. These guys, these children are looking after their brothers and sisters, they've got no shoes, very, very human angle here.
The asylum process takes a long time. A lot of these kids in Calais, which is a camp full of refugees, an unofficial camp, one they've made themselves. Some of them have family in Britain. They've been granted asylum or leave to remain in Britain, but they've lost their parents en route, so they're actually separated from their families. It's astonishing.
And it's this bureaucratic process, the assessment process that needs to be gone through that seems to be slowing things down. Just one final point in this, of course, it's summer now. When winter comes, these children are going to be outside in the cold and rain if something doesn't happen.
And there are plans to demolish more of that camp as well. The French authorities want to shut it down.
Financial Times. I was just doing it on my programme, World Business Report, but the European banks took another beating yesterday. Here on the Financial Times, it sort of highlights the negative interest rates, right? Ain't helping the banks, and of course, what's the other thing I was going to say? What's the other thing in here?
Well, it just strikes me as it's a perfect storm, isn't it? There's moribund growth.
A bit of a perfect storm. Right.
Interest rates are very low. Very difficult for banks to make sort of technical profits. Sentiment's been hit. Sentiment's been hit further by Brexit. And if you think back since 2008, the narrative about banking has really been pretty consistently negative. I know we're going to come to the stress tests, but it ain't good. And actually, just look at the figures, look at the market in Japan. In response to that stimulus package, it's actually not had much of a difference on equities. So the global picture does not look good. Add into that some oil volatility, and I'm afraid it's a fairly bleak picture.
Not everyone watching is going to understand the ins and outs of what brings a bank's fortunes down, but what people will be particularly concerned about is, are we heading to another 2008? And of course, the stress test described in the Telegraph is one of those things that's meant to give us a gauge on whether it's going to happen again. Sorry, it's the Independent.
Independent. How much weight do we put on this professor's comment?
Well, it's not difficult to see some glimmers of truth in what he's saying, but let's be very honest, professors and analysts didn't really predict what happened in 2000.
Yeah, exactly. Where were the experts then? That's what I always ask.
Where were the ratings agencies? But all of them at the moment are neutral to negative, and therefore that will, of course, be concerning the average punter on the street, people going out and buying. You know, we've already seen retail figures in the UK very hit by Brexit suddenly, and I just wonder whether this is going to have a further trickle down. Worryingly also, the thing that for me the professor highlights is the capital adequacy, the capital buffers that banks are holding.
And basically how much money they've got to hold
Absolutely.
right, for a rainy day.
Because banks lend, and if they don't have those capital buffers, they can't lend. Now, whether that be for a massive infrastructure project or for your mortgage, that's really important.
He doesn't mince his words, though, does he? Worse than useless, fatal flaws. He seems pretty convinced.
Asleep at the wheel.
Asleep at the wheel, yes, asleep at the wheel. Which goes back to pre-2008.
But the point I think he's making is that is this delivering the message that the banking sector is actually strong when it's fundamentally weak?
Okay. I don't know if I can use the same expression, asleep at the wheel, when we sort of switch gears to Japan, because I was talking about it all day yesterday on my programs, but the Bank of, not the Bank of Japan, sorry, I keep saying that, but the Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe, who has thrown another kitchen sink at a problem that it needs more than money. What it needs is economic structural reform, right?
And you have to wonder, if as you've said, Aaron, time and again, they're running out of options here.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a lot of money being chucked at things. This is infrastructure spending as well, which I think that's quite interesting. There's an infrastructure element that hasn't been quite so at the forefront in the past. It's been a lot of equivalent of quantitative easing and all of that softening the fiscal policy, monetary policy, sorry. Things like this maglev train, things like nursery schools. This is really important. Remember that the story, this negative inflation, negative interest rates, and suddenly a very strong yen is all playing havoc with the Japanese economy.
Yeah.
Well, while newspapers around the world report on war and economic downturn, I'm really glad the Times dedicated some of its front page to more pressing issues.
Yes, more pressing issues, definitely.
Such as flossing.
Just when you thought the August silly season wasn't going to happen this year with all this heavy news, we get this.
I cannot, sorry, I don't believe this. I don't believe it. Flossing has to do something, because if you've got little bits of food...
It leads to decay.
And it just sits there, it leads to decay. Yeah. I mean, I use those little picky things.
But I think the issue is there hasn't been a broad research into it. No one's actually taken the time or spent the money to look at if the effects really are there, if they are beneficial.
There are two things that strike me here. It's a huge marketing tool. It's a huge advertising tool for a lot of people to make money.
Exactly.
Secondly, our children and sugary drinks. That's the real thing.
Okay,
just a little bit. Just
a little bit there, yeah. Thanks. See you soon. Bye-bye.